Okay, we have started recording and transcription.
We're waiting for folks to filter online and come in. I had an interesting conversation with Peter Johnson. And he said, and he kind of made a particular point of, hey, are you coming to the meeting in June in Cleveland? And I wasn't sure why. It was like particularly kind of poking at me like, hey, you need to come to this meeting because I haven't seen an agenda yet, but I did register for it. I didn't know if you had an agenda or know what it is.
Well, it's the Compact Council regional body.
Yeah.
Science meeting. So I have to look and see if there's an agenda that you sent out. There's a hybrid option too.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the context of your conversation was to know what's on the agenda. So
Okay, yeah.
let me look. And
We were in a big meeting, a bunch of people, and so we didn't have long to talk, but he was just like, you should go. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead and go.
The more the merrier.
All right.
Yeah, I will look.
Okay.
I haven't, I'm just trying, I've got like the next 3 weeks I'm trying to get through.
Oh, I know.
And then I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, so then just.
I'm so fun.
Yeah, it's my mom's birthday. They said we're going to Greece for 2 weeks on like a little like island hopper cruise, which is my first cruise ever. So and I get my physical. So I'm like, oh boy, I hope this goes really well. So but yeah, I'm really excited. It's gonna be like my family has no idea what it means, but it's gonna be like band like gardening. I think it's gonna be about that big. It's got 25 cabins.
Yeah.
And like a hot tub like you have in your backyard. It's not a,
Right.
more like a
Not like
an emergency. Right, so, well, even though I'm going with my family, you know, it's nice to shut your door and go through. But yeah, I'm very excited.
Okay.
Starting to like lay out my clothes and so yeah, a lot to get done
Well, I
between
hope you
now.
have a
and then.
wonderful
Thank
time.
you. I'm so ready for it.
Right.
And we've been taking trips like every 5 years.
That's cool.
Yes, and then June I have like travel every single week for the first 3 weeks. I'm like, I'm back for 2, gone for 3. So I will look at the agenda.
Okay.
I'm glad you're able to go last week. I sent Simon because I couldn't be there.
Yeah.
But I heard it was good.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I thought you did a great job. I watched the movie of the Great Lakes. Great Lakes St. Lawrence Governors and Premiers. Way too long of a title. Yeah, the
Oh my gosh, really? Because I felt like I
you did
was
a good job with that.
running through that was why.
Yeah.
No, it felt overwhelming how fast I was through all of those.
I mean, you know, there's New Yorkers who listen to that. They were probably like, she covered this up a little bit.
Well, I appreciate that, but
I thought it was good.
yeah, I haven't forgotten about the roadmap. Actually, we were talking about it. It's kind of how everybody imagine our working together.
Yeah.
And actually, I've got a project somewhere that's going to be like.
I would love
something
that.
where I could.
Yeah, because I know that's one of the things the implementation team wants to look at is kind of, where are we?
Have we met?
No, and I need to schedule a meeting. Okay. It's on the list.
Yeah, I know.
But now I know not to schedule it in June.
Like, not Mondays and Wednesdays. Thursdays and Fridays are a little better, but every Monday through Wednesday, I'm in Cleveland, I'm in Ontario,
Yeah.
Duluth. Right. No. I thought it was somewhere.
Yeah, you still are. Oh my gosh, you went hot.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm like a little tiny.
Really? I like don't ever sweat. Like I just like I know, I'm sorry. It's not finished. Like the finished side of me is just like over here, like not having the ability to block out the summer.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Care of us.
Yes.
Is this the agenda?
So recording and transcription have started. There should be a sign up sheet going around somewhere.
somebody let me know. Yeah, okay. The sound is great. So you're retired already.
I'm gonna burn 15 times and then maybe she can turn a slightly darker shade of white. That's
Jenny, it
it.
looks like you're trying to talk, but I can't hear you. Yeah. I'm still looking for confirmation from somebody online. If you can hear us
We can
talking.
hear
in the-
you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. Wonderful world of internet connectivity that is like a modern day seance. Can you hear me? Are you there? All right. A quick check on. Not have in person before.
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right, well, Eagle folks, you ready to get started? Okay,
Yep.
very good. Well, we'll go ahead and jump on in and we'll allow folks who come in late to go ahead and join us, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time who's here, so we'll roll on in. Good afternoon, everybody. In case you're making sure where you're at, you are at the Water Use Advisory Council meeting. I'm Laura Campbell. I'm one of your tri-chairs who's here in the room today. And what I would like to do is we have recording for everybody who's participating online, but I'd like for everybody in the room to quick introduce yourselves so that folks participating online know who's here. So I will start to my left.
I'm Brian Burrows with Michigan Trout Unlimited, representing statewide King.
Pat Saskevich with Random Waterworks, that's the association representing Peak Creek Horse.
Katie Lindstrom with Bar Engineering Company, representing professional hydrologists.
Joel Henry, HDR.
Megan Napier with APC Fairless, representing the assistant industry.
Young Sumco from MSU.
Abby Eaton, which is from the agriculture.
Dave Hamilton, retired from the Nature Conservancy, representing the statewide conservation group.
Tina Pappett, Groundwater and Geologic Services Section Manager with Eagle. Emily Fennell, Great Lakes Senior Advisor and Strategist, Head of the Office of Great Lakes, and representing the Eagle Director, Bruce.
Jim Milne, Eagle Water Use Assessment Unit.
U.S. Geological Survey.
Michigan Environmental Council.
Okay, thank you. Let's go across the back of the room too and use your outside voice.
Andy LeBaron, Eagle. Here, like Eagle. Like Eagle, Eagle. Right here, snake fish, yes. Slide the wheel, office of Great Lakes.
Sydney Ravala, Eagle, Megan Cameron, Eagle,
Hannah Arnett, Eagle. I'm Claire Rose, Eagle Water Development.
Rebecca Edwards, Eagle.
And Tracy Melvin with the Nature Conservancy.
Right, and you're just in time.
Adam Wygan, PRMD.
All right.
Eagle.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, what Brian and I are counting here is that we do not have in-person quorum. So what we are going to do is we're going to make a note, and Maddie, if you don't mind making a note of this, we are going to take suggestions for alteration of minutes, but are not going to officially approve them. We're also going to take any suggestions or changes to the agenda, but anything that needs to be voted on, we will wait until our next meeting in which we have in-person quorum. So at this time, I'll just ask if anybody has any amendments or changes. And Dave, I know you have an introduction to make. Any changes or amendments to the minutes? And if you're online and want to make a change or speak up, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand. Seeing none. Any changes that need to be made to today's agenda? I do have one minor one. When we get to our open discussion, item number 8 on the agenda, I did talk with Todd Feenstra, who is just back from a cruise, and found out, hey, we want to talk more about water districts. And he said, I'm not ready. So what we're going to do with that agenda item instead is instead of doing Q&A and feedback live here in the room, Kelly Turner, who I hope is online by now, is going to provide some information on how to reach out to that group with questions and feedback. And they are going to include that as part of their bigger project of collecting all questions and feedback so that they can answer them and make sort of an FAQ document. So we'll get to that when we have that agenda item, but that's the only change that I have. Any other changes to today's agenda? Okay, seeing none. Dave, you have an introduction, you think?
Yes, so I would like Tracy Moe. She works with the Nature Conservancy, and she is the Michigan Director of Conservation. And so she's my new alternate. So I'm very pleased. Well, I guess Rich Bowman's kind of aging out. You know, we're bringing a fresh new life here. Really glad. Tracy, I think, is going to get involved in some of our work groups. So she'll be very happy.
Tracy, thank you. Consider me Rich Bowman.
Minus the
I
mustache.
know. You do the short straw, huh? He cheats, just so you know. All right. At this time, we will ask for public comment. So for those of you who are used to this game that we play, we do 2 public comment periods. The first one we try to reserve for agenda items. The second one, which will come at the end of the meeting, will be for basically anything kind of water related that anybody wants to bring up as interesting topics for the good of the group. But at this time, there are agenda related public comments. I would invite those. And again, if you're online, don't forget to unmute yourself so that we can all hear you. Kelly, what do you got for us?
Hi, everybody. Sorry I have to not be in person today. But just so you guys know, as chairs, I'll be hopping on and off because I have another meeting that I'm forced to be at, unfortunately, today. But I think that we have new commission or council members, and I guess I'm not sure if that needs to be an agenda item or if there just is a place to introduce those new members.
Well, Dave just did an introduction for his new alternate. So is there somebody that you want to introduce? That would be a good time to do it.
I can't even see who's all on. It's really awkward being online. But I believe that I had heard there were new people that were put on by the Speaker of the House. And I didn't know if we were going to get an official announcement on that and if that is something we need to do introductions on. I don't even know if they're on or in person. So it's a question I have for the group.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of confused looks around the room. So I think what you are doing is actually breaking news to all of us.
There are
Fantastic.
There are no new appointees in person at this meeting that I can see around.
I thought the individual that the speaker appointed has been here. Let me look at my email. Not in person present today, but okay.
Anything else on that?
No, maybe that just needs to be put on a suggestion to put on the next agenda then. So we do introductions or at least let people know, like contact information. I don't know if there's a better way to share that so that we've got contact information for Dave's new alternate as well. And maybe just a new updated contact sheet for everyone is a suggestion for the next go round.
Sure, we can do that. I know that Maddie's predecessor actually drew up an updated council and committee member list, and so we can take a look at that and make sure it's updated with anybody who needs to be added. We can send it back around. Good suggestion.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks. Any other public comment? Agenda items, and I guess I'll ask if this is anybody's first Water Use Advisory Council meeting. Let us know so that we can warmly welcome you.
So this is Sean Willis, if you can hear me. Not sure.
Yeah, sure can. Hi, Sean.
Okay. Yep, I'm new to the council. I was recently appointed. I was at the previous meeting as well.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to our Eagle staff and to our new TNC member who's here. Welcome, Sean. Anybody else who's new to the council?
Brett Shadley represents.
Who are you representing, Sean?
I'm an attorney with Willis Law in
Okay.
Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay, and if you were just appointed, what group are you representing on the council? What interest group?
I was appointed recently by the Speaker of the House.
Okay, are you representing like municipalities or irrigators or?
My firm represents a number of businesses, agricultural, manufacturing, some municipal work.
Voting member Sean Willis, Ducks Unlimited, dedicated to wetlands conservation.
Got it, okay.
Property owner. Lakefront owner, riverfront owner, other front owners.
Got it.
It's gelling in my brain now.
Wetlands conservation, yep. Yep, okay, all right, thank you, Sean. Right, any other public comments or anyone else who is here for the first time, online or in person, you haven't been recognized yet?
This is Dave Matern. I'm not new. I'm staring at my computer screen, says someone will let me in when the meeting starts, but obviously Teams does not like me. So I'm on the phone. I'll participate on the phone.
Oh, Dave. I feel like I need to do an exorcism on your computer.
This is never ever going to end. So
Chicken bones. and
anyway,
rice.
I'll be back. I'll be back in May.
Okay, all right, thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, last call for public comments.
We're not seeing anybody waiting to get into the teams, but if you think you're in the teams, exit and then try to re-enter and see if that works.
I'll keep trying. See what happens. Unless there's another way of getting me in, I click on the link, and it brings me to Teams, and it says, "Hi, Dave. Someone will let you in when the meeting starts." And then I've been sitting here for 10 minutes. I'll try again, see what happens. Otherwise, I would just listen, and if I got a comment on things like maybe the budget, I'll let you know. So,
Okay, all right, thanks, Dave.
all right, thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, if we are set, I think we can go ahead and jump into our next agenda item. I believe I'm supposed to pass that to you, right?
And then the committee chair reports. First up is conservation efficiency. That Emily, Kelly today, or how today?
Kelly, do you want me to give the update, or did you want to go ahead since you're able to join us right now? If you're talking, you might be on mute. I'll go ahead and give the update. So we did have some slides. Those can be pulled up. Well, while Jim is pulling those up, we're just gonna freelance here a little bit. The committees continue to meet on a monthly basis. We will start moving towards a monthly schedule, or I'm sorry, a bi-monthly basis.
I don't have those water slides.
Okay.
Just go back to where we started.
All the way back. I can join the teams and share my slides. I'll do that.
Yeah,
There it is.
that's Dick. So I will stop sharing, and Emily, you can share your screen.
I'm not in the teams meeting, so apologies, everyone.
We're all loving technology today.
And
We just do the data together, you don't come back to you.
try to do this without making feedback. I only have 58 windows open, so let me make sure I grab the right one. Okay. I have to scroll back, so. Okay, and this is just a heads up for MSU then, that you may need to share your slides. So if one of you is on Teams, and you can do that. Okay. I don't see.
Are you sharing anything?
It's on.
I see.
It's on
Yeah,
Teams, but it's not on the.
Okay. Just don't see it on the screens in the room.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been fun. I'm gonna kick this off. Okay, so we met on April 2nd as a committee. The first thing that we wanted to do was cover some updates on some of our projects that have been funded through the Water Use Advisory Council. We have the Ag Water Conservation Efficiency Educators project. Work continues after the winter spring event, and we've had continued participation there. I'm just going to cover a couple highlights, and then I'll turn it over to MSU to share their screen and go into a little more detail. We also talked at our last committee meeting about grant extensions, grant management, and continued funding for the Ag Water Conservation Efficiency Educator project, as well as the irrigation pilot project. Mobile Lab is underway. I'm hearing some feedback. We've had mobile lab evaluations promoted in the winter spring events. We've had some mobile lab construction that's expected to be finished soon. 9 center pivots are scheduled for evaluation in April and early May, and there's more to come. So those are kind of the treetop highlights. I will turn it over to Youngsuk to share his screen, and then I'll share some additional committee updates for the remaining part of our April 2nd meeting.
See the screen. If you're online, can you please ensure that you're muted unless you need to speak? Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna tag team here. I'm Janine Schweilberg, Associate Director of Agriculture and Agribusiness with Michigan State University Extension. And so Youngsuk and Dr. Youngsuk, Dawn, and I are going to tag team on our report here on the Michigan Agricultural Irrigation, Water, and Energy Efficiency Program. And then he'll talk about the mobile irrigation lab. So in 2025, we just wanted to give a highlight from some 2025 numbers. The irrigation team reached almost 4,900 farmers, ag professionals, and policymakers, and held 6 irrigation hands-on workshops and trainings. And that's a 3-fold increase with the 2 additional extension educators, Brendan Kelly and Angie Gratis, from previous years. Their outreach and extension efforts are reaching people. They're creating short YouTube videos, such as winterizing drip irrigation and pivot irrigation systems. Those have been picked up widely. They're sending monthly water use and irrigation digest sorts, essentially electronic newsletters to almost 1,600 emails monthly. And those are getting between 53 and 59% open rate, which exceeds the industry average of 40%. And they've had 137 new subscribers added over the past 6 months. And the good news is that most of that list was built from large volume water use withdrawals, and they did not unsubscribe, right? So they're finding the information that's being sent useful, is what those numbers tell us. And they're also shared weekly craft water use updates with about 1,200 stakeholders, plus those are published online in extension reports and sent in a text version to subscribers who want to receive that information weekly in that format so that they can know how much water they should be putting on different crops throughout the growing season. They've had over 15,000 views on articles, fact sheets, and bulletins in 2025. And some of those resources include utilizing soil moisture sensors. Some of these resources have been translated into Spanish. So many of the operators of irrigation units are Spanish speaking, and they've translated some of the resources into Spanish, as well as sharing those information to Spanish users through WhatsApp. There's a user group where they can share that. That's where that group traditionally gets their information. They've also created other fact sheets on turning gallons into inches and been picked up in popular press and Michigan Farm News and other agricultural publications for scheduling and other resources.
Yeah, so one other thing they also been doing is promoting irrigation scheduling tool. So we have a mobile app which was launched a year ago, and they've been promoting, they've been providing training to producers on how to use the irrigation scheduling app. These have utilized reference EP, so from the nearest weather station. So it tracks how much the plants use water daily, and from the information, the farmer can decide when to turn and how much to apply irrigations. Up to date, early this year, the app now has about a little over 300 users, active users, and managing 208 fields, covering the over 50,000 acres of corn, soybean, vegetable. So Brandon Kelly is actually his master. The project is about evaluating this irrigation scheduling, and through the ANFAM trial study. From his study, we found that there is about 1 inch water we can save from irrigated corn and soybean field. The 1 inch seems pretty small, but if we can save across the irrigated corn and soybean field in Michigan, they estimate about 13 billion gallons of water we can save it. So it has a lot of big potential to use our water more efficiently. Brendan and Angie also been providing training to MDAR meat technician and soil water conservation district staff and USD and RCS local the staff on the system evaluation. So they go, they do on-farm trainings. They bring people into the center pivot located, and they teach them how to measure the flow, how to measure the pressure, and how to do the catchment test to understand what the uniformity of the center communication system. Brandon also and Angie, they also been doing the evaluating the drip irrigation system, so make sure the pressure is at the right pressure. Also doing using the fluid dye to understand the wetting patterns after farmers applying waters. And these demonstration really helps to visualize and understand farmer how they've been irrigating their farm. So that make sure they don't under irrigate or over irrigate. So overall help with the irrigation system and management efficiency.
So far in 2026, they've been to, they've spoke at about 10 to 12 different programs. And they've also attended at least 4 different irrigation dealer open house days where they're tabling with the events that are upcoming, the training and resources that are available, and interacting with those growers that are present. So 2026 is off to a great start now that we've got our first quarter.
So Angie and Brandon and Lyndon Kelly and myself, we've been providing the system evaluation training to the stakeholders, but based on what we know currently. So there's for example, the changing sprinkler. We go with the manufacturer recommendation. So manufacturer recommend changing sprinklers every 8 to 10 years. That's manufacturer recommendation based on Nebraska water use, or irrigation water use. And we don't have the data here. So this is why we need where the mobile irrigation lab can help to generate the data or collect the data, collect the data so we can provide more meaningful recommendation to the Michigan producers. So we launched the mobile irrigation lab last November. So the pump has been developed, has been approved. Like Emily mentioned, the lab trailer the construction has been going pretty well. We are just waiting on the wrap for the trailer. It just came in today, so we're gonna put it on this week, and then we'll start taking the trailer to the farm. We also have custom the 3D printed the catch-can cups, which will be available for public. So anybody who wants to catch-can test, and if they have 3D printer, they can print out using our files. So that will be available to anyone. So we've been spending a lot of time on promotion of the mobile irrigation lab. So up to today, we shared mobile irrigation through the NSC extension articles, and thanks to Kelly and Laura, they also shared our article with the Michigan Potato Commodity and Michigan Farm News. So we really appreciate for spreading the word out to the stakeholders. We also promote the program at 13 events, like extension meetings, commodity group meetings, and irrigation dealers. We have a booth that we talk to. This is where we can talk to the growers one-on-one and get their interest on participating in mobile irrigation. Like Emily mentioned, we have 9 Senate pivot already scheduled. April, we've been getting a lot of rain on weekdays, weekends. It's been dry, so we finally got out to one of the farm last Friday afternoon. We did the first evaluations, and we came back down at Saturday morning with Dr. Cups. So it's been going pretty well. A farmer has been participating, already signed up. We already had one-on-one Zoom meetings, so we know where to go and make sure we have all the information ready to go for evaluations. We plan to complete the pre-retrofit in April, this month and next month, 10 Senate pivots, and have them to replace sprinklers if they need it. If the system is needed, then we do another post-evaluation after that. The crop types, which includes for this field, the field that has been signed up for, are typically grown with this corn, soybean, potato, cabbage, and Christmas tree. We had the opportunity to visit the Florida Mobile Irrigation Lab about 3 weeks ago, and we met their team. Camilo from Florida Mobile Irrigation Lab manager. He helped us to schedule the meetings with the team leaders on the southwest and southeast part of Florida. It was really amazing experience. Camilo actually drove like 8 hours from his house to the south to meet with us and stay with us for 3 days just for giving training. So they're really interested. They're really excited and about the Michigans had just launched the mobile irrigation lab. They've been sharing all the resources and all the contacts so that make sure our program will be successful here. So the reason we are down there is we have really good understanding of how we can make the setup pivot system improve it. But the drips and the nursery setting, we still have those drip irrigation and nursery in Michigan, but that's something we need to learn more. And that's Florida is really strong programs with the nursery and drip irrigation. So we went down to the citrus farm and tomatoes and some nursery farms to learn about how they're doing evaluations and what recommendation they're making. So overall, it was really good experience. So for last slide, I really appreciate the whole council and the Water Conservation Committee supporting both NJ Brandon and Mobile Irrigation Lab. I think we're very excited and we've been getting a lot of interest on Mobile Irrigation Lab. So yeah, thanks for supporting the project.
These two projects complement each other really well.
Thank you both. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but there will be an opportunity to demo the mobile lab for the committee and other Water Use Advisory Council members who may be interested in experiencing that. Then Seth has promised that we won't have to get up at 4 a.m. and drive somewhere unless it's a really cool place. And that's Saturday. So we'll look forward to that opportunity. And then I'm just going to share my screen with the last slide here. Thank you both for presenting that. We're really excited to see all the great work that's happening and these pieces are fitting together, and it's perfect timing as we're starting to talk through potential recommendations going forward in the legislative report and continued activity. So sorry, I was not prepared to have too many screens open. Now we're at 60, so give me just a minute here.
You did a really good job mentioning some of the outreach that you've done and some partner organizations you've been able to get news articles out through. if your agency, university, MGS, any folks that have information that you want to get out to the countryside, out to farmers, definitely let us know. I don't get to tell the farm news team what to print, but they like me, so they usually are pretty good about printing stuff that I send them. So if you guys have things that you want to get out there in the countryside, do get a hold of me.
Thanks, Laura. So as you may recall, the last WUAC meeting, we had just come out of a 3-hour workshopping session with the Water Conservation Efficiency Committee, where we kind of took stock of all the work that we've been doing over the last 5 or 6 years and really thinking about what's the body of work that we need to, what have we learned, and then where do we need to go in terms of improving our water conservation efficiency programs and all the work that really the council has been doing due to all the investments in the program. So we had a chance over the last couple of months to refine all of those notes from those discussions. We did a lot of dot exercises, put together some materials for the committee to have some more discussion at the last meeting. We reviewed the outcomes of that workshop at our April meeting and talked about some of the themes that were identified, policy and regulations, opportunities for collaboration and partnership, huge need for education at all levels. So legislators, policymakers, water users, the general public, all the way from Great Lakes Compact and agreement and how that works regionally and how that connects to Michigan's program down to how we manage water and water use in the state. We also talked about one of the themes being sector-specific best management practices and some opportunities for research pilots and demonstrations. Many of these activities were identified from these discussions, and we had to really kind of think through what do we have resources for, who has capacity. So we were really excited and I think super ambitious in our workshopping session in February, but had a chance to hone our thinking a little bit more in the committee meeting. So 9 activities rose to the top around expanding opportunities to increase implementation and awareness around water conservation. So that agricultural irrigation retrofits, like we just heard about, a priority that we've had for a while now is really updating and enhancing the website with all of our water conservation efficiency projects and information for different water users. We talked about hosting webinar series, EMPs for high water using tech industries, and then needs for aquifer and geology mapping. So from the discussion, we formed 5 work groups, and we lumped some of these categories of activities into these 5 groups. So there's some overlap. And these work groups will be starting to refine the discussions that we've had in the workshopping session in the last committee meeting into, is this a recommendation for the 2026 legislative report? Is this a committee activity that we need to work on together? Is this something that one of the agencies or organizational partners can really lean into? So, so some more work to do there. We'll provide some additional updates at the next committee meeting, which is in May, and then the WUAC as these topics evolve. We did get some individuals that offered to sort of champion those groups. So if you're interested in more details on that, reach out to Kelly and I, and we can try to help connect you to those opportunities that we didn't quite land on a detailed work plan yet. So that's still evolving. And I just want to thank Katie Micah on our team in the office for doing the heavy lift of pulling together all the notes, working with one of our interns, Sarah Meadows, and Andy was a big help working with Katie and a few others from the committee. So there's a lot of information to process and get organized, and we're still in that honing, kind of polishing the rock stage. So Kelly, did I miss anything? You can hear me?
I can. I only caught part of it because I was in another meeting too, but I think you did fabulous.
Thank you.
And I have to thank Emily for jumping in. Like when I found out that I had to be in this other meeting, I was like, do you mind reporting today? Because I'm going to be in and out. And she was like, oh, let me look over the notes. So there's a lot that's happening in the group, right? And I think of special importance is, I think, the one thing that we'll bring that will be a recommendation, but there's a lot happening. at the other levels. And if anything sounds interesting to anyone on this committee, and you're like, I'd really like to be part of those conversations, you don't have to join our committee, but we are looking for people to work on these kind of specific projects, bring them to life and get more ideas. So if anything sounds interesting to you, like Emily said, just reach out to us and we'd love to plug you in somewhere.
Thanks, Kelly. And I think one, specific example that we've been talking about and wanting to work on for the last couple of years is, partnering with the Catalyst Communities program and identifying some specific topics and speakers around water conservation efficiency. So this is a program and a webinar series that Material Management Division and Eagle administers, and they provide all kinds of information around sustainability to support communities and taking next steps. So whether it be weatherization, energy transitions, all kinds of different programs and resources that the department has to offer. And so it's being offered under this larger umbrella called Catalyst Communities. And so Julie Stavelin, who's the assistant division director, and I have been talking for years about trying to stand up this water conservation piece and just need more resources. So Colby Owens on her team is going to help champion that. So that's one of the topics in the webinar series that we're interested in doing some more work on as a committee. So, but yes, we think we'll have a couple recommendations, at least one for some continued funding, but we're not quite there yet on what that's going to look like. Hopefully I caught everything. Anybody else from the committee have anything else to share? Okay, good.
I've got a question about, of those 4 bullet points, your second one there, the last thing you list there is aquifer geology mapping. Is that falling under data collection and or models committee?
So I'm really glad that you asked that, Jim. Thank you for bringing that up. And it's a good reminder of something I want to mention. So in our workshopping session that we had in February, we talked about how important it is to understand our groundwater resources and our aquifers. And Sarah, of course, is part of our committee. And so that came up as an area that is still really important for us to understand. And I asked the question in the committee, is this topic being discussed in other committees? Because there may be some overlap, but we wanted to at least capture it in our conversations. And it may fit within another committee, or it may be something that the council wants to have more participation in. So, so we didn't want to omit it because it was part of the record. And recognize that it overlaps with the data and modeling.
It overlaps with so many things. So having it come up constantly just shows how important and valuable it is.
I think the short of it is we will never know how far we've come if we don't know where we are.
Right.
Now. And that's repeated over and over again.
And then a final ask would be, if you can share your slides and Yunsuk, if you can both share your slides with both Madison and myself, then we'll make sure that those get added to the full slide deck for posting on the council's website.
Any other questions?
I go back and share.
Thank you very much. The data committee. Let's start off. I do intend to give a.
Can you see data? I'm just doing a quick check. So people online, are you seeing the data committee update slides? Great. Go ahead.
So I'm going to give an update of some of the committee discussions in the last meeting or two, but before we get going, I was going to invite Howard and Sydney to give any sort of shorter and more timely updates as you get really close to the launch of one of the components. I know we put you on the spot and you guys gave us a lot last time, but if you'd like to share some stuff, okay, fine.
Yeah, should you have the slides? Can I share this down?
Yep, it should be up.
So these were a summary from the data committee discussions, not slides that I think Sydney made.
Yeah, these are different slides I shared with you earlier this week. Oh, those two are there. This is in the map, actually. Okay, I share my screen here.
Not,
Oh, there's one.
Yep.
So yeah, just wanted to provide an update to the council and Howard, feel free to jump in if you want to add anything, but the airborne electromagnetic survey that we are working to complete, it's a cooperative project between Eagle and the USGS. Flights are expected to begin as early as the beginning of next week. I think we're targeting doing a test line at the end of this week if the weather cooperates. So you could start to see the helicopter in Southwest Michigan at the beginning of next week. I don't know if we have ever actually shared this map so far with the council, so we wanted to today. What you can see there on the map are the green lines. It's probably kind of hard to make out at the distance, but those are the individual flight lines the helicopter will be flying. They're 1 mile line spacing between the lines, and then you can see there's cutouts over the heavily populated areas due to all of the buildings and infrastructure in those areas. The helicopter is unable to fly over them. So it's going to be 8,000 miles of flight lines, which is over 430,000 data points. So there's a ton of data. We'll also be flying a couple of densified areas of densified flight lines. One was associated with the Dunn Lake tribe, and then the Pagan Band. Both of those were requested by the tribes themselves for their own water resource planning efforts. Any other tribal lands where we have not received written permission from the tribe and will not be flying over their lands. And then there's another three of specified flight lines in Ottawa County portions of their county requested as well. And then we will also be flying a couple of river corridors. That includes the Kalamazoo, the Thornapple, the St. Joseph, the Pawpaw, and the Rocky. And so by flying directly over those river corridors, we can get information on the geology beneath the riverbed and look at groundwater surface water interactions. And then just on the timeline, wanted to point out here with this one, that the place will go through June of this summer, but the actual data processing and then beyond that, the data interpretation will go into 2027. So it's a longer effort to process the data. So yes, we should see that coming. So that's the update I have got on the AEM survey. I think there's another slide. Jim, get this one. So we have developed a couple of project websites that we've shared before. It's on the USGS AEM page. You can find the flight tracker where you can actually see the products from the helicopter. And then we are continuing to do outreach, and we're working on setting up an in-person media event at one of the airfields for early to mid-May. And I should have one other slide on the rest of the project. Yeah. So for the rest of the heavy project, just brief updates. Wanted to let the council know that USGS did present initial work and or preliminary findings to Eagle for the following tasks: the stream gauge network analysis, the stream temperature analysis, the groundwater monitoring well network analysis, and then groundwater modeling. Eagle and USGS will be ready to present the completed work for each task to the data committee and the council. Probably a little further out once the work has progressed somewhat further and if more findings are available, we'll be ready to share that with this group. The updates I had. Howard, do you want to add anything?
That's good summary. And I think heard this morning that the media event may be the week of May 16th. It's kind of where we're narrowing in on, and we'll make sure to invite Water Use Advisory Council. I think it's going to be at the airfield near Marshall. Yeah, we're just still working on the details, but the lead geophysicist from Denver will come out and be able to answer questions, and we may have some preliminary flight data that we could show. So it should be pretty cool. I've seen some videos of other events like that, and Brooke does a great job of describing what's happening, and it's neat to see the antenna and the geophysics rig in person. Probably the week of May 16th. We have to work with the contractor, and then, depending on weather and how they're working through. And just to emphasize again, something that Sydney said, we put together an online mapper. So once the flights get going, it'll say, this is how much we've covered, and this is the next, area that we're going to go to, which will be helpful for residents, because then they'll know this is when they should see the helicopter, and helps with the local units of government and sheriffs and stuff. knowing that they're gonna start getting calls with this flying helicopter coming by.
Other questions about the eight? It's gonna be.
I saw a news report, I think using the same technology, they just found a huge springs of fresh water, the Great Salt Lake. How did you? That would be kind of a handy piece of information to have to kind of. Oh, books, this is it. Sure. Foreign technology, here's an example of what they've done with it in China. What's happened, I don't remember where I saw it, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was the same technology.
We've had several, we did a media alert, Eagle did a media alert. SGS over the last couple of weeks, we've had several requests for interviews. I know Sydney's been fielding it more than I have. But we've been able to provide some YouTube links to events in Denver and or in the Delaware and also the Mississippi Delta. Have some published results so people can kind of get a sense of this is what it looks like and the kind of data that comes out at the end.
That's good. But the flip side, right, is if you're one of the early groups that are getting the privilege of having that expanded in our area, can have it in this that get comfortable with it. So you guys can make a lot of excellent about it.
I appreciate you guys sharing the information with me so that I can put it out through Farm News. I did have some farmers call me with some anxiety. Less so about the helicopter flying overhead and more so about what can that ring read? Like, I think they were thinking, can this like look directly at my well and tell what's going on with my well? And I'm like, oh, no. So definitely thank you for sharing the information.
Yeah, and thanks for getting that news out. Because people are concerned about cultural artifacts or other things that this data could be used to do, and just reassuring people that you know we're not coming to get them kind of is helpful.
Is there some kind of protocol in place for other things that are discovered and protecting that?
I don't think it's that accurate that you could get like cultural artifacts. That's usually what the tribal members were worried about, and it doesn't have the sensitivity to pick up those kind of.
There's a question in the chat. Somebody's wanted to know the total cost of the project. I'm not sure whether the total cost of the AEM or the total cost and or the total cost of the entire Hemi project.
See. 4.3 million sticks in my mind, but I can't remember if that's with the extension or not. So I'll have to get back to you. Unless Sydney knows off the top of her head.
Additional participation in the areas portion smaller version of those. So yeah, I don't the original share for the school. That's where all the rest of the issues, but network, the very well before and also the aid place. So that was all of the factors in the budget.
Is that inclusive of post-processing or not? That would be separate.
Initial processing of the data, but data into the separate.
Right. So we have a couple of slides here in this series that'll give everybody more background of some of the things that we're talking about, but I'm not going to follow them. It's going to give you a summary of what instead. So the key thing, and it was touched upon a little bit, Abby, you mentioned it in a slightly different way about not being able to say where you're headed, where you've been. I know that everybody on this committee has a multitude of very convincing needs for additional data. That's pretty certain. I think there's 100% consensus on that. However, making a well-justified case to that fact involves stating what you are currently in possession of for data, which you do not have, what you need, and how you will use additional. And so we found ourselves for some time needing to make that case in the appropriate professional comprehensive way. And a lot of what we're working on is towards that. So We have the long-term data planning. It's a big piece. A couple of reports ago that we closed in on. And Sarah, she has her leading. And then recently, we'll see other notes of the Hemi project, because while that may have originated or been created under different funding strategies for reasons, it has some things that are very unique, but it also has some overlap to that very purpose of saying, what do we have now and what do we need? And so we're tracking both of them. At a high level, one of the hard parts that we're applying as much pressure as we can do to the leads on those is that both of them have a timeline closer to the end of this year, about the same time as our report. So if we were to comfortably wait until all the results were official and approved and cleared, we would miss any opportunity that we may have to use that as the basis of recommending more data forward. So, been very patient with us, but as a committee, we're trying to, as much as we can, work with all of those projects to get preliminary results so that we can see how much of a basis do we have to lay forth that. Here's what we have, here are the gaps. Because once we do that, the committee needs to talk about prioritization. There are too many gaps in available data. We know, right? Every type of data we like to have more. So we also have to talk about what is that utility of additional data collection. It's all useful, all desired by us for different purposes. We're hopefully can use that to make sound, well-justified recommendations in this report. And certainly, I expect far more in the next report. That's why the full time and full results they brought after this report gets sent in. So for now, we're thinking probably trying to focus on more of the long-term, ongoing monitoring needs, some of the basic foundational things that we know that either need to continue or continue program. But what we expect, and I don't know whether we're going to have the ability by the end of this report due date, is some of the other strategies to take short-term investments, acute investments, and to take advantage of that to strategically fill some of our data needs. So, the example, right, is stream flooding is what we love. For USGS permanent long-term one that will stay in place for a long time. So we're going to strive to make recommendations on those, but there may be, in the absence of that, given the nature of short-term funding, there may be an opportunity to also gain information with utility to us. It may not be at the per state, but there may be other alternative strategies that we still want to recommend. Yeah. So that's what we've been driving at, and honestly, right now, right, the Water Council finds itself in a unique place. Haven't been involved in a long time with having a lot of projects being implemented at various stages. So the unique challenge now is just keeping track of all of those, how they interplay. Even the nomenclature for different projects and the names. I've had, some people trying to help with this, quite a few newer participants, which is wonderful. Just going, I heard this name, I heard that name, I heard that name. It sounds similar. How do they relate? Sometimes explaining the same thing, or they're subtly different, but there is overlap. It could take quite a long time. So that's a lot of what the data committee's been doing, is trying to take full account of all the relevant projects, where they're at, and then trying to push towards, can we get just enough of, and I recognize uncomfortably pushing for insight and projects that won't be officially finalized until later, but that's our goal right now. If we can pull it off, we'll be trying to come in with some recommendations, but not as many as I want, but as many as we can. Questions? You can click through the slides however you want, but they're there for you to read on your own. So let's move on to the models.
All right, I'll continue this reflective mood, and I'll start with, sometimes it seems like it takes forever to get something done. And unfortunately, that's true. Unless you're persistent and a little bit lucky, that sometimes you can get something done. And we're getting at that point with models committee. And if you look at everything that we put on the table, something's being done with everything. And I want to give you some context to what we're doing, how it fits together, and where we are with these different projects. So first of all, we have recommendations in all three of our reports, 2020, 22, and 24. And something's being done on all of those, which I think is astonishing and wonderful. And there is some method to our madness. We are trying to achieve some strategic purposes with all the things we're trying to do that would help the water use advisory or water use assessment program. In many ways, assist water management in Michigan. So the first thing is that it was improve the interface with the tool. And that's what the department's been doing a really nice job on. They're almost unrolling these things out. But if you look at it, the tool's becoming more transparent. There's more understanding of what's in it and how to access things. More options have been supplied in it of different analytical tools that can be used. There have been ways to improve the information that's going to the department and in preparation of site-specific reviews. So all of that is in the improved interface for the tool. So I think we're almost done with it. That's been quite an accomplishment, I think, and I'd like to congratulate the department on that work. The second big picture thing is that we want to ensure that the tool has up-to-date data and that the methodologies are accurate, scientifically sound, and they're kind of the best kind of things that we can get, and that they're efficient. So those also come out of our 2020 recommendation, and there's several things that we're actually at that completion stage, and we're working on it right now to finish things up. So two of them are the transmissivity and storage coefficient are two parameters that are critical in the whole process. And I was thinking about, that work was originally done over 20 years ago, pulling that together. And so there's more information that's available. We've got better ways of looking at the data, of analyzing the data. So we've had a couple contracts out to do just that. And the work has been completed. The models committee now is digging into those to try to figure out what is our recommendation back to the council as to what do we do with it. We've also worked on the web squared methodology. That would be an improvement of just how stream flow depletion is allocated around surrounding streams. And so that's an important piece of this as well. So I view this as kind of a package that these things, improving the data, improving the methodology of apportionment, would be actually the first time that we would have actually changed the inner workings of the tool, not just the interface, but the inner workings of it. So it's really important. We'll be working on a recommendation for that, but the work is done. We're into the period now where we're analyzing, figure out what it means, to try to come up with a recommendation for all of you. The third thing is to think about the tool itself is a simple screening process, and that's all that it is. And that gets confusing for a lot of people because they think that the answer that comes out of that is the final answer, and it's not. More than half of the people who come into the process get an automated authorization for water withdrawals through the tool. And so it's successfully doing that because it has inner workings that try to say, okay, is there likely to be an adverse resource impact or not? And if the answer is no, there's not likely to be an adverse resource impact, just an automated yes. If there's a question on that, that's where you get into your center of the site specific reviews. And those have been growing in number. We really need to get better tools in place to assist with that process and assist with people in that are responsible for trying to analyze what's going on with the water resources in their area. So that's why we've been digging into two of our very big projects from 2020, were the creation of the Michigan Integrated Water Management Database and the Michigan Hydrologic Framework. And those were merged together into one project. And that is in the final stages of completion now. It'll be done before the end of the year. I will give you a short update as to where we are right now, and we'll have more detailed updates at future meetings, kind of what we've done recently. But the idea of these is that the database, it fits into what the department's trying to do big picture, pulling in all groundwater data, a huge system. This is a subset of that with data specifically needed to make the Michigan Hydrologic Framework effective. So it fits in. We've been making sure that it works well with what the department's doing, but it's being made available now so we can make the Michigan Hydrologic Framework operational. And the Michigan Hydrologic Framework is a way of pulling together the data, centralized system, available models, other models that have been created, so that it makes it much easier to create a model, analyze what's going on in the water resources of your area. So it's facilitating the creation of models, which is really important for us to be able to make water management decisions. And of course, the one we're most concerned about are we're going to cause an ARI or not, adverse resource impact or not. But it will be valuable for a lot of other uses and people that manage water in the state of Michigan. The fourth thing is the transitional probability geostatistical mapping. And this is not part of the tool. And it's not actually part of the process. The reason that we're doing this is that we've got the Michigan Geological Survey is doing some very good work to try to get 3D mapping of the superficial geology. But it takes a long time for that to be done. We've got a large state. They're working through as fast as they can. But they're not getting everywhere. And we have needs everywhere. And so we can't just wait for Michigan Geological Survey to finish that work. So we're looking for, is there another tool that we can use to help us better understand the geologic setting in kind of a three-dimensional way? And we didn't know what the answer to this would be going into it. And actually, we're still working on what the answer is. But we're working through that. And what we have in hand is that our engineering did a detailed study in two counties, Cass and Calhoun. And they did some very excellent work, very rigorous work, which has supplied us with some very good information. There was another consultant that did work in Allegan and Ottawa counties, and they used the same kind of technology, and they came up with results that they incorporated into their work, to the modeling work. So we're working with both groups. We're talking to both groups, and to try to figure out, okay, are there differences there that we need to take note of? Are there similarities that, to learn from what's been done, so that we can make something that's more of a holistic statement as to this technology is useful under these conditions, and if you do these certain things, but in these other conditions, it's not as useful. We're trying to come up with a roadmap that will help people down the road. If they don't have the Michigan Geological Survey work, but they have a lot of well information, this may be a tool that they can use and will help provide some guidance to them as to, if they want to try this, these are some ideas of how they could do that. So those four things are all in our 2020 recommendation. All four of those are in final bits of completion. So I'm very, very pleased with that. So by the end of the year, this will be all done. Miles Committee is working on recommendations, so that we will be coming to you in the coming months with recommendations on all of these as to what we have to say about it. Other things that we're working on in the 2022 recommendation, the topic of downstream accounting that was approached, and it has been funded, and there's two projects underway for that. Those are just starting, so periodically we'll have some updates as to where they're at. But the basic idea there is that the way the system is set up is that you've got a water management area, and everything in the system revolves around that. And so when they're looking at how much depletion are you having, you're looking mainly at the streams that are there, but also neighboring streams and the neighboring water management areas. It does not look downstream. Is there a downstream effect from these withdrawals? Now, that seems like an obvious thing that we should think about, right? And some people might think that, well, of course, you just subtract it out. But it's not that simple. This is actually a fairly complex problem. So we're trying to look at it in a fairly rigorous way of looking at what data are available, looking at modeling to try to understand the mechanisms as to how a depletion is going to or not going to migrate as you go downstream. So over the next 2 years, we'll be working and coming back with that. There won't be recommendations on this for 2 years. I'll pretty much guarantee that. But you will get some updates every once in a while as to how that work is progressing. The sixth thing is something that we put in our last report, And very pleased that the department found ways to fund this. It's the investigate the stream flow depletion using detailed data collection and modeling. And so this is something that I think every interest group that's involved in this program has a lot of interest in seeing this information developed well. The idea is to, let's pick an area with a lot of irrigation. Let's go in, let's examine it, see what data is available in it. Let's set up a good monitoring system so we can see how much water is coming out of the system, see if we can actually see stream flow depletion, set up detailed models which will help us interpret the data that we're collecting. So this is something that is just starting. We're putting together a work group to oversee this work, getting work plans together with the people that will be doing the work. So it's something that will be very important, very good. And one thing that I'm thinking is really critical for us as we decide on what area we're going to work in, we will want some irrigators involved very heavily with us on that. And I would like to find an irrigator to be on the overall work group. And I'll be searching around, see if I can find someone. But I think this is important. Everybody asks the question, is this real? Are these numbers real? This is a chance to really do a study that's going to help us understand what is happening as irrigation is done in an area. So the Michigan Hydrologic Framework, just to give you a real short update as to where things are now, is that a lot of the functional aspects of the framework have been developed. So they've been given to users to evaluate, test, try to break it, see what works well, see what isn't working right. So it's really a crucial point as to where we're at with that right now. And so I'm really pleased that we're there. We're also at a point of adding more functionality that will be ready to go to users very shortly, or in fact, maybe in the hands of users now. So one of the things that has been asked of the framework is that you might have a user interested in this area. It's not a township, it's not a section, it's an area that's of some shape based on hydrologic features. And can you cut the information out from this area, gather all the data that you need, and then use that to create a model? And so there's a lot of technical issues that go into how do you cut something like this out. So that has been developed. It's going to be tested now. So that's a very important point. In administering this Michigan Hydrologic Framework, there's going to be a lot of data coming in. There's going to be a lot of data that's available. There's going to be a lot of models coming in, a lot of models will be available. And it's going to be administered by the state. And the state has to have tools to administer this efficiently and well so that they can get information in, make it available to whoever needs it, make it available in a form that users will be able to use it. So that has also been developed and is being tested. And we'll be working to will the state, as the minister, have everything that they need. One of the things that the state wants is that the Michigan Hydrologic Framework is able to take in all the models that they have to review. So we have in our mind that, okay, we're thinking of somebody's doing a model of a area, they're focused on groundwater withdrawals, and that's going to come into the system. They will look at it and say, that's okay. It meets certain standards, and then someone else could pull the same information, redo the model or use the same model. But there may be things that are more specialized that are being done for other reasons, and the department can use this system to pull in those models. So that is being developed to assist the department with having that flexibility, which I think is also very good, because then that means that that data will also be available. It may not be what we've got in our mind as to this standard model, but it may have information that's really useful to other people who model in the same area, and that could become available information. So the state and other users that are testing this, they're providing feedback to the developers. So that is happening right now. So the prototypes are out, feedback's coming in. So that will be used to improve the prototype. it go back out to the users, and then, so there'll be a iteration going on for the rest of this time as this is being developed. And ultimately, we would like to have a time where we say, we think this is it, make it publicly available so that anybody in the state that has any interest in it all can go in, use it, try different things. And we would like to have a time where they can do it while we're still in our project development time. So we've got some funds to get that feedback. Oh, this didn't work. Figure out why it didn't and fix it. Well, this is working great. Could you make it even better by doing something else? You know, those are important kinds of feedback that you can only get when you've got a working model out there. So it's our intention to get that done as well. So I think that's what I want. All I want to say, and that with the database, it's the same kind of thing. That the functionality has been developed, it's being tested, and so we are well on the way to this becoming reality. So a prototype is out there, more functionality is being added to it as we speak. And so I'll stop there. Any questions? And I hope that gives you a kind of a sense of how this all fits together, and that there's the method to it, minutes. Any questions?
But that's credit to you, I've gone that really nice, comprehensive, high level leaderboards and of what relevance, so invited us down.
Oh.
Coming along. Soon there's another data point that has to use.
That information would be very valuable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were looking at how do we incorporate the information in the Michigan Geological Survey? How do we incorporate anything else that's going on, especially these big projects? Yes, that's all fodder for.
Yeah.
For this process.
Wouldn't that be available then through the database, the GIS interface, right, like for download? Because
Yes.
it's USGS's intention to make the AEM data publicly available nationwide for all the different projects they have throughout the state. And then we'd be able to link to that the same way that we do all the other projects.
Yeah. And I'm working with Sarah's staff to try to get some shape files that I can play with from the Michigan Geological Survey. You know, this is all coming together. It's really.
Howard, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we put out an initial data release of the, like, initially processed data. That there is.
Exactly, yeah.
Implementation committee, I'm not sure.
He is not, so I'm gonna fill in, and our update is really quick because we are still working on getting a time when we can get our committee together with folks from Eagle and also folks from opposite the Great Lakes and make sure that we are up to date on all of the status of projects and whatnot. The big thing I will say is start thinking about it for our report time this fall. And Brian, since I know, especially you mentioned, hey, we've got some things that are not going to be done by the end of the year. Don't forget, I know this is what everybody is really looking forward to doing, but with a brand new administration coming in next year with a whole bunch of new senators, whole bunch of new House members, new governor, potentially new leadership in the departments, it's a great opportunity if we need to submit a supplemental report to freshen that up in people's minds and say, hey, you're just coming in. This is a great time to do it. We're just about to submit a supplemental report on additional things that weren't ready for us by the end of December. So I know you know that, but just for the group's benefit. The other thing that we want to make sure of is that as your committees are coming up with recommendations, you know, you guys did a great job of providing examples, like here's the things we're working on, here's the status of them. The Conservation Committee, you guys did the same. The more you can help the council members get previews of what it is that they're going to be asked to vote on, you know, like where do we think our recommendations are going? That's going to be helpful as well, so that people can start getting their minds wrapped around what questions do they have, what discussion do we need to have, what concerns do you have before we get to the point where we're writing the report. And then while we should be nitpicking language, we're instead asking huge foundational questions about, you know, what does it mean for us to make this recommendation? Also, Dave, you mentioned it, but I wanted to make sure and highlight it because we've had a lot of questions come up. the stream depletion study, the one that you brought up that everybody's been very interested in. That was one of our that was the primary 2024 recommendation. Lena, can you talk really quickly about how the funding for that came around? Because we have been asking for the legislature to fund it, and we weren't able to get out in front of the budget committees, the appropriations committees, but the money is there. So can you,
Sure. It was part of the investment, the one-time groundwater protection fund money that had come into legal, and since this was an ongoing recommendation, if the legislature had chosen not to fund it, which that's what the path that they chose last fall, then our intention was to come in and support the recommendation for the that's where that is.
okay. So that is excellent news, because I like to know that at least we're getting stuff by that about 2-year time period, if not faster. That we're able to get funding for these projects that are supported. So I just wanted to make sure and highlight that. Other than that, we should have some more output for you guys coming up at our next meeting, and we should be able to provide some funding summaries and kind of where we're at.
Thanks. And if I can add, I'll just say that, as I mentioned, unique to this moment in time, we're implementing a lot of stuff. We've got a lot of old reports under different headings before this was even a body, making recommendations that never had any funding or follow through. So I think my opinion is that this report needs to have a heavy dose of describing progress to implement all those things as part of our accountability. Saying we're going to do things, we need to say that we don't have them. So our committee had discussions like recommendations we take into the fall. We can start asking everybody simply progress updates and all things that we're summer to hopefully try to give our committee a lot of the basic ingredients that are not recommendations to start with and switch over. Any other questions about the implementation committee or upcoming report sequence or anything? We'll move on. Can you advance slides up to the Eagle update portion? Which is a couple of different. So, first up is
The lot have a couple of updates we'd like to share. As part of that agile approach that we kind of have mentioned several times, we've had a couple of small releases, mainly to address some bug and user comments. The last one that we just sent up was for ADA or like accessibility components that are required for our external facing sites. So that was resulted in a couple of updates to kind of the look and feel of a few things. Hannah is going to share.
And drop it in the chat right now. There's a button that we had replaced. It used to say reuse.
Hannah, why don't I stop sharing and then you can share your screen?
Pull it up if you want to share it. But just a quick little screenshot. There used to be a button that said reuse the jump renders because no longer has words on it. It's kind of condensed to make that screen a little easier to see. Slash it's ADA compliant.
Yeah.
But the button's not labeled now. So a fun feature.
So to follow ADA compliance, it kind of made it a little bit harder to use. So we will be fixing that, have a little tooltip over it. It's weird. It's a little bit outside of our control, but the next release that we have, which will be after April, at some point in time, we'll have like for that. Which will get right into the next part. We will have a couple more bugs and whatnot updated in a release after April. Has to be after April because there is a server update from Michigan, state of Michigan servers. So if you have any edits or bugs or comments that you haven't quite seen yet, we probably still have a list of them, but I want to encourage everybody to still provide feedback. There's a couple of other updates that we'd like to provide. Currently, the map on the application is experiencing a little bit of a bug with the WMA zone displays. It's currently showing Ds and Ds not exactly correct, even though the amount of water there is correct. So if you're having some issues or want to ask questions, let us know. We're literally fixing that right now for the team is. And then the other little update is that the accounting data tab, that you can download accounting data. We're gonna have to clean that up at some point in time as well, so it may be gone for like a moment, and then put it back up there, but we just let you guys know. And then I think that's that for that, if you want to wrap it up.
So our last update is that we are setting this project a little bit, and we are going to be modernizing the Eagle water use reporting site. Maybe you guys have never seen it, but it looks like a toddler made it back in. I'm just kidding. It works great, but it definitely needs, revision. I'm so sorry. Okay, don't blame me for that. Easier flow for us.
That's about it. Just to wrap it up. Still, any bugs, any issues you're having, please reach out to us. We have like I said, I'm going to you might not be working. But we'll do the best we can. That's about it.
Server is scheduled to come back up at the end of April, so it's the 25th, I think, April, that's when we'll have access to make whatever changes you all want to see.
Yeah, and we have a list of stuff that's ready to go.
I'm sure.
Already.
Is one of the things on that list, a question that I received from a farmer who's saying that they were trying to register a withdrawal and they weren't able to select more than one use for that water?
I remember that issue actually, Laura. I think we had already started to look into it, and it might have, while we were trying to transition into this final phase of the third and final phase of the lot update, might have gotten kind of put into that list of things to address once the server comes back up. But I do remember you sent that along.
Okay, thank you.
So what's an example of that?
So like if they want to use the water for irrigating crops and for watering livestock, for instance, or if they want to use it for, I don't know, washing use, in the packing house in addition to supplying irrigation for a greenhouse or something like that. They weren't able to select different uses. They can only select one.
Yeah, I think for now, use the primary use.
Yes.
Select the primary use and make a note in the comments.
Okay. For a new registration, not for water use reporting.
No,
Yeah.
trying to understand, schedule.
Another example of how that might matter, if you're talking about an aggregate facility, a large client withdrawal solely for the purpose of dewatering is exempt from the Part 317 Aquifer dispute resolution, but if the withdrawal is also for gravel washing, in addition to dewatering, that might make a difference, making it subject to 317. So
And that's the process.
yeah.
All right, thanks for the update. Any other lingering questions? And let's move on to the water use assessment.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the update for UDO's water use program. So I'm going to begin by providing 2026 year-to-date metrics. And I'm going to show an updated map of our Zone D water main where there is no stream flow currently available to register additional large client withdrawals. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have declared it. We haven't declared an adverse resource impact yet, but Zone D means that there's no more water available to authorize new withdrawals, and we need to do additional investigation to determine whether we actually have an ARI or not. And then finally, I'm going to talk about an incident that damaged one of the USGS stream gauges that was installed in the Zone D water management area. So this table to date, we've had 71 tool registrations and 62 site-specific reviews requested. And that SSR breakdown, we've authorized 44. 6 were retracted by the applicant, and another 12 were still pending at the time that we pulled together the metrics. Tabular form, 71 tool registrations to 62 SSR requests, 0 Zone A, 11 Zone B, 23 Zone C. 1 was replacement of existing baseline capacity. 9 were for dewatering projects. 12, as I said, were still pending at the time of the slide metrics were pulled, and another 6 were retracted by the applicant. So here's a breakdown for the same time period. We've talked before in the council about categorizing SSRs in terms of whether they are administrative, desktop review, or technical review. And that 4th row is at the time that the metrics were pulled. New SSR that was still within its first 10 days hadn't been categorized yet by the SSR staff, and then totals. And then late, the statutory deadline is 10 business days. And then we added columns for percent. There were SSRs that were completed within that 10-day window by category. And then also percent that were done within 30 days, because we had talked to the council about a 30-day time frame was more realistic for the technical SSR category. And then these graphs, the top one is the average number of business days to complete an SSR over time. And the bottom is the percent that were completed within that 10-day deadline. Additional program metrics. Part 327 permits, so new or increased withdrawal above 2 MGD, or if you're in a Zone C water management area over new or increased above 1 MGD, or if you're talking about intra-basin transfer from one Great Lake basin to another over 100,000 gallons per day. We've got 1 permit review request that's still under review. Compliance communications, 43 of them, break down to 7 revised registrations where something was different between the as registered and the as built as operated characteristics. And when there's enough stream flow to authorize the as built, as authorized, as operated, then we send out a revised registration. 28 communications where we're contacting the property owner to verify whether the withdrawal had been installed or not. 2 compliance communications broke down were involving water use reporting issues. 3 were after the fact registrations, so discovering a previously unregistered withdrawal, and if there's enough stream flow available to register that that after the we do an after the fact registration to register that withdrawal. And then the final 3 were missing pump information, so we didn't have information about the pump capacity and or the pump schedule available. So then we contact the driller and the property owner to get that missing information when it's not in the WellLogic well log. Pre-screening reviews, those are equivalent of an SSR that we do for Eagle Drinking Water, Environmental Health Division for public water supply withdrawal. So we've had 4 of those. 1 was Zone B, 1 was replacement of existing baseline capacity, and 2 are still under review at the time the slide was pulled. Here is the updated Zone D water management area map. And finally, want to tell you about an incident where one of the USGS string gauges was damaged. So this was a gauge at Bear Creek and Lawrence Road near Leonidas in St. Joe County. It's in water management area 21337, which is one of those Zone D water management areas. On paper, the current stream flow depletion balance is minus 233 GPM. And based the cost estimates that we get from USGS, putting in a new gauge, roughly 25,000. And this incident has been referred to DNR Law Enforcement Division, who is currently investigating.
It's got photos.
Yeah, and there's before and after. So
Angry deer.
yeah.
It's in a bad spot.
And given that these stream gauges are part of our efforts to, number one, verify what are the actual conditions in the stream. So does it true up to our depletion tracking? And then also those gauges are in miscellaneous flow measurements are part of our efforts to address some of the council recommendations. So that's why we wanted to raise the council's attention to what is a pretty serious incident. And if you are wondering where this is, so there, this zooms in on that 21337. So it's in the very northern portion of St. Joe County. There's the gauge location there down near the mouth. And then it extends further upstream, mostly into Kalamazoo, a little bit into Calhoun.
Called out by somebody purposely.
Good, thank you.
Tough call, but it's an important data point. So, yeah, we won't discuss a whole lot with law enforcement involvement, but we do want the data point. See how it plays out.
Any other questions on Jen's section? Move on to the Great Lakes Council updates. Emily.
Oh, I'm up?
Great
Oh,
Lakes.
right. I mean, it's a hard thing to follow that.
This is a standing item.
Yes, it's I'm struggling with I got Teams on now. I don't have the agenda pulled up on my 61 screens now. So I think I'm just giving an update on the Compact Council and the regional body. So we have in person, so we meet twice a year. And one of those meetings is in person, and that occurs usually in June. We will be having our science team meeting on Tuesday, June 16th and June 17th in Cleveland, Ohio at Western Case University. And then our official regional body Compact Council meetings start with meetings with the tribes, First Nations and Métis and regional observers the afternoon of the 17th. And then we'll have our formal public meetings of both the body and the council on the morning of the 18th. So there are opportunities to listen into the public meetings. I'll be doing a report out on Michigan's program and our implementation efforts. So as part of that effort, we'll be gathering information from the water use program and the work of the council to highlight a lot of the great progress that's happening. And it's a good opportunity to come together regionally. We will have some presentations on a couple of research projects and other ongoing work. So the regional water demand, water forecast study that the initial phase is underway right now with University of Michigan and University of Illinois and Ohio State to look at start to look at some of Michigan's work that we're doing here that Sarah's involved in on the western side of the state, to look at all of the water use data and water availability data and do some forecasting into the future of, what does the future, some different scenarios for water demand, water forecast look like. So the Compact Council and the regional body and the science team have also been supporting some research, some ongoing research to look at high water using industries, tech industries. So more results of that work will be presented at the upcoming meeting. So if you're interested in attending virtually, or some of those meetings are open for public participation, I will provide Jim and the water use program the links for registering for those meetings. And all of the presentations that are given in the public portions are typically recorded with permission by the presenters. So we're looking forward to those opportunities to come together. And I think Lena and maybe some other staff from Eagle will be going, and encourage you all to check out that information. That helps connect the work that we're doing here at the state to the work of the Compact and the agreement.
Do you have any questions? All right, it looks like back
Right,
insider information from Adam or Sarah about funding updates.
Actually, before
70.
you're going to talk about water user groups.
Well, I think 17, I think you are.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
We're all confused.
Yeah, so it says funding updates and it has Adam and Sarah listed as the back. So I don't want to put you on the spot too much. It seems like about the agenda, but I would assume that's.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass my hat, right?
It's exciting and dangerous for that to be on the agenda. We know the legislature is working on the 2027 budget. I mean, we're hopeful that the work that we've been funded to do will continue. I mean, it's in the exec rec. We didn't have an executive rec to cut the existing work that Eagle's doing. Obviously, the exec rec didn't include geologic surveys, and all of their fans have been out there talking with appropriations. I think it's important to continue to let folks know in the legislature about the work that the MGS does, and especially how broad it is. It's not, only oil and gas, that there's considerable amount of groundwater work going on that's of interest to this group, but also critical minerals and other things. The mapping programs that they're involved with are so fundamental to land use planning, understanding our geologic hazards, a whole host of things. So I don't know a lot other than I think we're going to start seeing reports and things moving, coming out of the legislature when they're coming back from spring break. And I would assume that they'll be very active in the budgetary process.
Yeah. Well, I have been rallying our advocates, and I have a template of a letter. If anybody is interested in that, I'd be happy to share that. As well as I also have some handouts here, just talking about what it means, the work that we've done. So I've got some of our projects from triage to our mapping and the critical minerals and energy work, but really what's at risk and what does it mean for us? So we've broken it down into that. So it's quite simple and logical. And the other thing is that they have made this investment of an $8 million repository for the state of Michigan for us to build this on Western's campus. And we broke ground on the 20th. And the concrete is being poured this week, the footings and the walls. It's really exciting to see that happen. So we have this $8 million investment, but we have to invest in the scientists to do the work. So the rocks aren't going to tell us the story. We need the scientists in there doing the work to do that. So, pick up some of these, share them with your groups, share them with your organizations. Also have what the mapping means. And if you look at what we've got for mapping, we've got modern mapping in 14 counties in the state. That's 17%. That's pretty sad. And I also have a comparison of where we are with our sister states in the Great Lakes region and where we've been over time in our spending. But geologic mapping, at a minimum, there was a study done by the American Association of State Geologists and the American Geosciences Institute. And in that survey, they found that the minimum return on investment for every dollar invested in mapping that a state provides gets $7 to $10 in economic returns. And that's the minimum. Some of them were upwards of $35 for every dollar invested. So, I'm happy to share these, happy to discuss it, but that $3 million pays for science, trusted science in the state. It pays for, the facilities. It pays the base salaries for our scientists. Now, it's not that $3 million doesn't fully fund us because we've got projects coming in. We have the projects here at Eagle, but we're also bringing in federal dollars. We've brought in more than $12 million in federal funding to the state since 2023 for projects. So it's seed money, but it's really critical investment that the state makes to benefit the citizens and benefit our knowledge of our resources and what we need to protect, how we can best use them and how we can best manage them. And so I've got all kinds of really hopefully useful handouts, and I can share that template letter, which can be customized. It's a basic letter to at least get you started. It's some spaghetti on the wall, and encourage you to share it with our policymakers who are making decisions, because the governor's budget has $400,000 in there, and that's just not going to sustain us. And we're just getting the momentum. We're just building what we can do. We've already put in applications because the federal funding is now starting to come for geologic type projects and energy and critical minerals. And so we've already put in $29 million worth of applications, and we've got another 7 or 8 that we're going to put in. We're going to keep rolling and try to fund these projects, but the projects don't just fund the survey, it funds our partners. We're partnering with other universities. We're partnering with Michigan Tech. We're partnering with Michigan State. We're partnering with U of M, as well as we have industry partners who are coming to the table and working with us as well. And the governor talked about geologic hydrogen. Well, there's a whole lot of unknowns there. We have a bullseye on Michigan, but it's based on a couple of data points and probability based on what we know, but we don't know enough to really know where that might be, and even if it's viable. That's the work that we can do at the survey. Absolutely.
Muted.
Dave, adjourn, we'll wait. Floor's yours.
There we go. Microphone. How's that?
Here you are.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad to see that the Geological Survey is out there beating the bushes. And it's nice to see that one of the asks that we made previously, stream depletion, got funded. The Eagle Appropriations Committee meets tomorrow morning, 1 o'clock, room 403. I wonder does the department liaison have any idea what's going to be in Senate Bill 855? If you go to it online, you see $100 placeholder. Any ideas from anybody out there or folks in the department?
I don't, Dave. I think that the House and the Senate subcommittees, the next steps are they're reporting it. I mean, they do the $1 placeholder for the overall Eagle budget, but I haven't seen the details yet of those two subcommittee recommendations, I guess, if you will.
Okay, well, it's tomorrow. The Senate is, so I've made a couple of phone calls with some people that are on the committee just to see if they have an insight as to what's going to happen. Sure would be nice to get what's left of our previous ask in front of the committee somehow, so at least they've got they heard about it. I'm in Florida. I would drive up there myself, but can't do it. So, okay, thanks.
Another question somewhere on this.
Well, I was just wondering about timing. I assume yesterday, as far as the letter of advocacy.
Well, it's prime time. They haven't even launched their proposals yet. So we'll see where we are with those proposals, but it doesn't hurt to advocate for us all the way through the process. And so yeah.
But I assume that within the next week or two, we'll be more about the next month.
Perhaps. Yes. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna transition to the open discussion.
Sure.
I was supposed to turn it off to you.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
That's fine. The first one was the water users groups, and we just kind of we were talking at the executive committee meeting. We hadn't brought up this topic in a while. Emily was gonna maybe do a touch point on where we left off, that MSU study, and then Lena was gonna talk about what actually been happening in the department. So if you don't mind, Emily, just giving a quick overview of MSU, where we stand with that.
Sorry. Lena and I are like, no, you go. No, you go. She said, I get to go first. Where we left off with the guidebooks that we received is that they were in a pretty rough draft form. And I think there were a lot of questions about what kind of resources and next steps might need to be undertaken. And there were, some great findings from that work that we've been having some internal discussions about over the last year or so. And then trying to better understand what the program has been doing currently and over the last few years, and working with water users when, there may be issues with water availability. And I'll let Lena talk more about that. I think we've also been reaching out to some of the other states to try to understand, like Minnesota, for example, they're required to form water user committees to understand how those have worked. And there may be some opportunities, if there's interest here, to have more discussion with their state on their program and how they administer it with some dedicated staff. So I think at this point, we're in a place where we need to revisit it as a council and figure out what resources. I think there are some common resources that are needed to support water users in coming together, whether it's for a water user committee or a water user group, but just basically to help support long-term sustainable water use planning at the community level. And those are things I think we knew about before we started the integrated assessment project. We need more education. Talked about the water conservation efficiency program. We need resources to fund and support these groups and doing their work. We need resources for information gathering so they have the kinds of information. And we've lots of projects we've been hearing about today have been underway to help us have more information, better information about the resource to support resource management and support our understanding of what water is available and what water needs to be managed and how do we better manage those resources. So I think part of it is just letting some of this work continue and then trying to figure out where can we move forward on some particular actions and potential funding that could support groups. And maybe it's a pilot, maybe it's a competitive program. So I don't have the answers. I think we need to have more discussion as a council, but we haven't done, more to kind of spend time working on those guidebooks. We invested quite a bit of money into that project. And I think we need to take those learnings and figure out what we think we need to move forward. So
I think the topic was of interest to a lot of people in the council and gentle to it. And we got people kind of riled up a little bit in that. So I guess I'm just, at some point, whether or not we started another committee again to bring it up, I think we should think about that as to what maybe the next, because you mentioned, and so maybe that's get a small group together and try to figure out if that's the direction we want to go.
And I think it's the right time as we're going into the legislative process to put together our next report and identify what resources we think we need. I mean, I think we know we need resources to support data collection, so we understand what's going on in the system in that water management area or that local watershed. We know there's going to need to be time made and committed to by water users participating in a process, and it's not going to happen in a short time. There's relationships and trust that need to be built. We know that we need good information about how the program works, and there's a lot of pieces here that we've talked about all the improvements that are happening, and that's really complicated and very technical. And so I think figuring out, next, what's the program currently been doing to work with water users, and where do we want to go as a council? Is it a group that, a committee or subcommittee that needs to be formed? So what would that look like? And who wants to participate on that? And then, we'll hear more from Kelly on the water district. So I think there's some different ideas that are getting presented that different groups are interested in seeing, that just speaks to the need. And obviously, you've been working quite a bit for more than a decade in your county. So you have a lot of experiences, Lisa.
Groundwater board. An advisory groundwater board that gets together for 2 hours every few months.
So I'm not sure that, honing a guidebook into a resource is the direction that makes the most sense right now. I think we need to acknowledge those resources and then figure out what is the next step for working with water users to help support collaborative process and sustainably managing water use, and what are the key pieces that we need to supports around that to make that successful.
Yeah, I think that actually segues well into what the program has currently been doing, because I think what they found through practice is that not one size doesn't fit all, right? Like we have a lot of different conditions under which a different approach is actually warranted. So Jim, will you go into the slide? There's the water balance. I guess I just wanted to start this with an overview of how often we actually have this issue come up, right? Like, I mean, it's anticipated that it may come up more in the future as we continue to move, as more people come in to be registered in water management areas. But ultimately, this is the same map that Jim shared just a minute ago. And I wanted to share the breakdown of each type of water management area across the state so that you could see, there's 25 water management areas in which there's a zone B balance, a potential for an adverse resource impact that's indicated. And I think that turns into 0.5% of all water management areas across the state, which then means 99.5% of areas in Michigan have water resources currently available for registration and use. And I guess I just wanted to kind of put that into perspective, because we've had a lot of discussion on whether or not water is available or other things along those lines. 99.5% is almost the whole thing. So, but it kind of goes along those lines that those areas that are sensitive have a lot of water users. And then what do you do in those scenarios, right? Up until now, I think the piece that really has kind of been the piece that's missing actually is that definition of the adverse resource impact. Jim and his group, that's really what they've been looking for relative to establishing a full-fledged, formal water user committee. And in lieu of that, what the program has actually been doing is negotiating with water users on the side, and then also working directly with different county-based, like local units of government, kind of like, we were able to participate in your water board yesterday. I know Andy was kind enough to make the drive over there to sit back and listen to everything that you guys were saying. So we appreciate being welcomed into the room. And so, Jim, will you hit that next slide, please?
What's on that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry, for folks who aren't familiar, I guess I've just looked at this map so many times, I apologize. What you're looking at there is a map of the water management area boundaries across the lower part of the Lower Peninsula that have a zero or negative balance of water resources available. So it's essentially those areas in which we've registered a greater capacity than what the screening tool has indicated is available.
So I can't really see, they're so far away, but those
Oh, yeah.
boundaries that are showing up.
Yep, so they're small water management area boundaries. Yep, so they're like tiny little watersheds, essentially drainage.
Are they generally corresponding to cities or?
No, they're corresponding to stream networks that are hydraulically similar to one another, right? That was set by the DNR at the
Or-
beginning of the program.
Yeah, more typically headwater streams. It looks like Todd had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. One of the things that we saw Michigan State had done and put together a map, and we looked at it as well using the accounting system. The zones are one thing, the A, B, C, and D. We found that it may be more instructive to see how much water is left in the watersheds. The Bs, we've got cold transitionals, which just have no zone C to them. But also how, it's a better measurement, I think, of how close the watersheds are to being, deemed out of water. So it's been pretty instructive to look and see how many gallons per minute are actually left in the watersheds. Some of them will never go to a zone D, because if there's only 5 gallons a minute left, you'll never approve another well to go in there because it would be denied based on the model. So at the point that we're at with the state now, after 20 years of additional withdrawals, I would suggest that that's a really effective way of, and maybe a better way of judging how close we are to water user committees, rather than looking at just the zone classifications. The second question I had was, Lena, you had talked about negotiating with water users, and it's curious to me because I just heard that in a meeting the other day, talking with the Prairie River watershed folks, and they had made the comment that they were in negotiations with Eagle in looking to get the Prairie River watershed exempted from the Myowatt, and that you guys were taking another look at what the depletion values were using the model. Could you maybe enlighten us a little bit more on what do those negotiations look like, or how is that being addressed? I've heard that now twice within the last week.
Well, it sounds like you might know more than I currently do, because frankly, that's news to me. I don't think we've talked about exempting any part of the state relative to the registration process. Maybe somebody had a baseline capacity and they were looking to transfer it. I'm not really sure about the details of that, Todd. Do you want to share who it was that told you that? Or, I mean, we can ask around internally either way.
No, that's fine. It was, we had a meeting along with the Prairie River Watershed Group over in Branch County. And it had come up there that there was some negotiations that were going on, which was the first I'd heard of it. And so I was really curious as to what those negotiations would be, what kind of the process is, because it seems like that's probably a watershed that's the closest, right, to ending up right now in the highest potential, let's say, for creating water user committee.
Well, you know what? Right there.
Referring to the stream temperature classification.
Possibly. So honestly, I would be really curious to hear more about that too, Todd. And if they'd welcome us, we'd be more than happy to participate in that Prairie River Water Users Group, just the same those we do with the Ottawa County Water Board. You know, if they have questions or if they'd like Eagle participation, you know, we'd be more than happy to make the time to come down and talk with whoever it is that has those sorts of questions or would be interested in those sorts of negotiations so that we can try to figure out, you know, what it is and help them resolve their issue if they have any.
Yeah, we were wondering if that had anything to do with DNR Fisheries 3-year study about potentially reclassifying the stream temperature classification for water management area 20781, the headwaters of the Prairie River. If that's what they're talking about.
Well, and my understanding would be if you're going to reclassify a river system, I don't necessarily think that's a negotiation. That should be more data driven, right? For sure.
Yeah.
I think that was the purpose of that 3-year study. So it sounds like, I mean, I'm glad I brought it up today because it sounds like there may be some mixed messages or hearing from different sides of it as well, not kind of getting the same information. It may be worth spending a little bit of time. So sorry to interrupt. I appreciate the info.
To address Todd's earlier comment, I did just drop in the chat like a full picture of Michigan with the zone color as well. So that'll show all the A's green, B's yellow, C's in orange, and D's in red.
No, Hannah, what I was talking about was not the watershed status as far as the zones. I was talking about how much gallon per minute is left in each of the watersheds.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you for that. It was.
There's actually more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is really just kind of a recap of our experience on the type of work that the program has already been doing. You know, I mean, it's happening more frequently than not, right? Every time there is a site-specific review, there's a chance for interaction between the person who's trying to register and the program. And as a result, about 30 to 35 times a year, we're actually working with not just the registrant, but also other water users inside of that water management area and trying to find ways to make maybe some of that registered capacity that isn't being used on a frequent basis available for those other water users to try to make space for everyone in the area. I thought one of the interesting things is that Jim shared that this is not actually affected by the annual precipitation, which indicates that it might be something that's maybe density based as opposed to climate based, right? Like if we're not seeing a ton of recharge, it doesn't actually seem to matter relative to the number of times we end up interacting just on a water management area scale. And then the areas where this is most frequently occurring is in mid-Michigan and southern Michigan. There's two more. There's two more. Sorry, I'll make them quick.
Lena, before you go on to that, can you just maybe give some examples? When you say negotiation, what exactly is that? So the program staff are working with water users.
Yes, to adjust their schedule, right? Like every time there's a registration, there's a total allowable water that's the estimate that's generated. And so then based off of that, there's a capacity that they're actually using. And so if there's a large discrepancy between the amount of water that they've registered for and the amount of water that they're actually using, then we can actually work with other folks in the area to try to get them. Really, the idea is to let them have the ability to negotiate between themselves if they feel comfortable to do so. And if not, then what we try to do is use the relationships that we've been able to build to try to see if there's capacity that can be shared between neighbors, essentially.
So like administrative solutions, right?
They are administrative solutions, right? Like as opposed to going out and doing more data collection efforts that would
ultimately inform the ARI determination. What they're doing is essentially administrative solutions. Yeah, that's right.
So we haven't reached the point where a group is truly at loggerheads and somebody's got to give up, share, right?
Well, I mean, I would hope that that would never be the approach that we would take, right? Like coming down, top down, like thou shalt do whatever, right? Like that seems a little.
Well, the legislation says we're not supposed to get zone D, and then it has all these things that we're kind of sort of doing, but I'm not calling it right now.
Well, I mean, you kind of can, right? Like, I mean, there are legacy issues relative to some of the policies that existed, right? Like bedrock auto passes or some of the other things that they've done, and then.
That's your,
Registered depletions, and that results in a zone D water management area, right? In those areas where we had incorrectly assumed that there would be no influence on surface water from bedrock withdrawals, or those bedrock capacities like over and out, or infinite in nature, and we could just always depend on them. So really it's kind of a nod towards moving away from that.
There are also a lot of cases of excess capacity that is claimed, especially with surface water withdrawal, where you see the capacity, but then you see the annual use consistently is some small portion of that. And so that leaves some room for also.
Sure.
Well, and also, I mean, this whole process has been about improving science, improving our understanding, our knowledge about the system and our groundwater resources, and improving our ability to make better decisions around that. So it's an adaptive management approach. If we knew what we know now 25 years ago, we might have made different decisions then. So I think it's important to recognize that all the investments that are happening are helping us have better data, better models, better systems, better decision making, better understanding.
and to get back to you, sort of get back to your question, Pat. 16 years or however long it's been into the program, Eagle has not pulled the trigger yet to say that, yes, there is an adverse resource impact in this water management area. We've got, as you've seen, 25 or 30 or however many, where on paper, the balance is at zero or in the negative. But I zoomed in a little bit. The Beaver Creek, get the name right? Davey, one water management area 10445, which is right at the corner of Calhoun, Jackson, and Hillsdale counties. That's one where water use assessment unit staff have just started to go out and collect miscellaneous stream flow measurements from various points from the mouth upstream. There's no gauge. Currently, there's no gauge at the mouth, but we're starting to collect stream flow, and we will be doing some stream bed conductance measurements, probably starting to dig in with data collection, but it's going to be like a 2-year effort. So we've done geologic cross sections of the area, but we haven't gone out and drilled any wells or soil borings yet. That's probably 2027 before we could dig into that. But we're just beginning to start doing a deeper dive in some of these zone D water management areas, collect data and see, all right, what are we seeing in the stream on the ground, as it were. Before, frankly, I don't want to get on the stand and say, yep, there's an ARI if all I got is a depletion total balance. I want to have some data behind me.
We, if I could just real quick, I'll go to you. We talked about having a group help support the department on what is an ARI. So I don't know if you feel like you're at a point where maybe you want to try to get some people together or maybe you need to have a little bit more of this data collection.
I think towards later on in this field season, we definitely will want to come back to some of the committees and report out what we've seen so far, and then we may see what the committees say. If you want us to come back and report to the council as a whole, we'd be happy to do that, but a little later in the season.
Just going to say, I think from modestly point of view, we would love to have this discussion about how will these data be interpreted. This data is going to be gathered, but what does it mean? Yeah, I think it's be great to have some examples of we've gathered this data. This is what we know about this. let's talk about how does this relate to an ARI and how do you make a decision on that? That'd be an important conversation.
Well, and I think that's part of where we ended up with the water user committee project too, is that we need some sort of procedure, administrative process, or what are the steps that the department's going to take to collect additional data to move beyond just, you know, what the model is showing, to have more information to understand if there really is the likelihood that an ARI is occurring in those zoning areas. And without that being defined, it's also really difficult to form a water user committee. So unless they're coming together as a sort of proactive community that is seeing some signs of impacts, that they want to start working together to better understand that. So I think this is part of what needed to be resolved, and that's not something that can be done with a grant.
Right. No, this is all great discussion. Good.
You know, I don't know if that's actually.
Yeah. I would just make sure that we split. These are like two hugely important subjects. They're, in my mind, they're two different subjects. So one is about, and then they're related because people is in a tough position of primarily being a regulator or sort of a statute. It's, in my opinion, I know that it has a different perspective, but we're not other comments. This program tries incredibly hard to facilitate a solution for the applicant. Far harder than I see in a lot of permitting, so that's kudos to you. But after this is, what does EGLE need to do to convince itself of the preponderance of evidence to enforce the statute? This is federal regulation. Statute says follow accounting principles, and if it turns out to be the that was not permissible. So if that happens, but for some reasons, you guys are still trying to figure out, like, how much do I need to convince myself internally? That, but water user committees is really about trying to build tools for the water users to be good to navigate amongst themselves a solution to a regulatory answer. So I just wanted to draw the distinction. They're both hugely important, but I think with the water users committee, it's tough, right? Because we're trying to build a tool. Hey, here's the regulatory problem. We want to give you tools to work it out yourself versus going to work and lots of disputes. The regulatory is really different, right? Like, what do you guys need to do to convince yourself of enforcement? And know that you mentioned those linkages where it's like, well, we're not totally sure that it's had the D or past the D. Maybe I need to collect more data. And how could we talk with a water user? That is correct, right? Water users is from down to figure out a solution to a regulatory answer. But you also have the whole part, which is your regulatory answer. So I just wanted to draw, like, both important. They have relations, but they're separate really issues to have.
Right.
Ultimately, I think it's giving those water user committees or those informal groups the tools that they need to make a determination on whether or not, right? Yeah, so that they can make an informed decision. And that actually gets us back to the next slide. This is like the longest 4 slide. Sure.
Dangerous, I know. But separating those two concepts, what you're saying, did I hear you that in this question about what's the preponderance of evidence, if department's done an SSR and we've done sound accounting and we see that water management areas overdrawn, over depleted, for example, that is all the evidence in your mind that we need. We don't need to like build this giant case that accounting is the evidence, and that's a preponderance.
The in statute and legally, I'm not a lawyer, but the preponderance is 50.1% most convincing or anything greater. So if at some point you guys decided like that bedrock path that originally was created is not sound, it doesn't operate as an unlimited reservoir of water, then you convince yourselves that function that was there is not sound. And that may be, in essence, might be 51% convince yourself that you can a change of the statutory accounting process that it facilitates. We've been pretty lax, really. Nobody's ever come to the department. You need to have your standards in place right now on when you're gonna draw a line and do hard enforcement. And that's why you have 25, right? Some of them benefit. But it's just something that's been out there. Not the lawyer. I read the statute over and over, but yeah, it's a preponderance. It's not like, it's not a higher standard, clear and convincing. It's not beyond reasonable doubt. It's just, the boss says it's just a preponderance.
Let's hope it's a. Okay, go ahead.
Adam, I think you're hitting on a very important point. I think you're absolutely right. That's the way the law is set up. It's an accounting issue. The thing the department has to be convinced of is that we believe our depletions are correct and that they're solid. I mean, that's really the only question. And I think the statute is set up that way deliberately. It's not set up to, you got to show that there's an impact on fish. It's not set up to show that you've got to actually measure certain things. It goes back to something you can measure. Measure what's coming out of the well, and then you have a way of predicting what's that depletion on the stream. Once you're convinced that I've got a scientifically valid depletion on that stream, you go to the accounting. And that's where I've got questions as to what are we going to do with all of this other data? I'm not sure it's how useful it will be. It may be useful, but I think we need to figure out how is that useful to answering the accounting.
And I want to be clear that Eagle, we are not authorizing new or increased large quantity withdrawals when we're in a negative zone D balance. We are not doing that. But we have not gotten to the point yet where the statute talks about if the department says there's an adverse resource impact, then you convene a meeting of all the water users if there is not already a water user committee. So are we at that point to pull the trigger yet? And for my comfort, I want to have some data to back up the accounting.
But a denied user.
Yeah,
Right.
that is true. And we do when they get to zone B, cold transitional, or zone C, we're required by statute to notify them they have the ability to form a water user committee, but 16 years or so into the process, we haven't, that's one of the untested theories.
You can't keep using 16 years.
Right.
Or the, and other groups are forming behind them.
And Brian, how is the information different that the department is going to need versus a water user to understand what's actually happening in the system if there is an ARI occurring?
Would be overlap tremendously. It's about, I just think, so trying to go measure where the accounting principles tell you it's going to be, and trying to measure and see if you've got the statistical significance with your data. Unlike computer, right? So, and that's why the statute was set up the way it was. I think, I don't have the right answer. I think maybe there's a lot of overlap, but one is sort of the regulatory side. One is the users that are affected by the regulatory situation, finding a solution in that regulatory decision. They have a lot of it. But I just always, as a data committee guy, going in, hoping that you have the money to test the
Because I think what we found with the water user committee integrated assessment, and we have heard, is that water users need to understand that there's a problem. And in order to understand there's a problem, there needs to be information to support that understanding. So whatever that data collection is, stream gauge, groundwater model.
That they need to understand the problem. First step is you defines their understanding of the problem, and then you work to have the understand the situation. Some things, something I don't conjecture, not working. So I speak on what students experience.
I think I would come at what Brian's saying just from a little bit different perspective, in the sense that I think that the department needs to decide that, yes, we think there's an ARI use. So what we think is going on with the water resources. That's really a foundational decision. Once that's made, the user gets to decide, what can we do within that constraint? It's not negotiated. It's like, what can we do within that constraint? Now, the understanding is that if I change this, it frees up this much more water. If I do that, it frees up this much water. If I do this, it uses more. That understanding is necessary to figure out where do we go from where they're at. So you're right. There's a lot of overlap. There are fundamentally two things.
And I agree with that. I think that, we've seen with Ottawa County, there's going to need to be investment made to collect more data to help build out that understanding. I think that's literally this next slide. Oh, so.
Todd, you want to do your next slide, or Todd has a question?
So, I mean, really that's focused around the data collection efforts that we have been doing, right? Like the USGS is developing that model for the Mission Doe area. We've got the groundwater model that is going to be, coming out of the HEMI project that we were able to give all of that Cass County data to them to incorporate so that we could, follow through on that initial body of work that had been begun and then stopped and then started again and then stopped again. So now we'll have a larger regional model that will encompass that information and that area so that the department can use that information more than it already has, right, Jim? Because I mean, you've made it a good point that we are using that foundational information that you shared with us in our determinations in that area. But, having that groundwater model that then will be available through the Michigan Hydrologic Framework with its inset capacity so that then we can look at these more localized areas. And we don't have to have some crazy process in order to run an entire half of Michigan.
So this together, this is amazing.
Right? Like, that was kind of the idea. And then, hopefully we'll be able to, it looks like Jim moved me along. So hopefully we'll be able to work and learn more so that we can continue to build out that toolbox, right? Not just the administrative solutions that we've been doing, not just letting counties and local units of government figure it out for themselves, but then learn some more sets of tools that, have been successful in similar conditions throughout the Great Lakes, like in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And those folks have graciously offered to come and give presentations if we'd like on some of their case studies that they, that they have found instructional for this type of work, right? Like, I mean, listening to the Minnesota folks a couple of weeks ago, they've got an entire team that worked together alongside their technical folks that help them make those prioritizations relative to water use and then walk through those negotiations with all of those interested parties to come to a resolution so that then they're able to ensure water access to all of the people who need it in an area. And then I'm done.
I think there's a lot of us that would like to do that.
Yeah, well, and that, I guess that was kind of the next question is, did you want this to be part of a work group, right? Like that was something that I thought Laura had brought up at the executive committee is, where would we like to have this discussion? Do we want to continue to have this at the full council? Would do you like this to be maybe a more focused work group? The folks from Minnesota and Wisconsin have been open to either option where they'd be willing to come and talk with us, in whatever capacity we'd like them to. And so I guess that's where the discussion I was thinking was going to go. So
Well, I would suggest that there's a lot of interest in that we could bring this to the full board as far as the water users group. I also would offer to the department that this whole thing about the ARI, we've got a lot of stakeholders around the table. And it seems like maybe it'd be appropriate just to have a work session and just around some ideas and bounce some things out in a safe space where you guys can get your thoughts together on how you want to handle that tricky distinction, because it's a big deal and it's going to happen sooner or later. I'm afraid.
And I guess I would suggest that we have a work group or one of the committees work on some of the details of. I agree that we see a discussion at the council level. I think there's a lot that needs to be done before it's
As far as
ready.
the ARI.
Yes.
Yeah, so I totally agree with a smaller group, and I'm glad you made that distinction. Yeah, so but I'm leaving it up to the department if they want to ask for help. So you tell me, Jim, if at some point in time you want to get a work group together, we can put the word out and try to get a few folks
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
We're working on it now, right, Jim? Like,
Yeah.
I think we've been putting a lot of effort in doing some of that data collection effort and proving to ourselves, exactly what's going on and kind of building out our own comfort. And frankly, I think that that's an important piece of being able to be a meaningful part of that conversation.
Sure.
But I definitely take your offer seriously, right? Like, I think that that's definitely something that will happen. I just, I want them to be well equipped to come and have that conversation. Yeah, right.
Todd has been waiting for the question.
Oh, thanks, Jim. So it was interesting to listen to. I would say the comment that I would have would be that the regulatory system is built on a predictive model. It's not a response to a measured issue. It's a predictive model. And so when we get to the point of saying, hey, there's no more water to be distributed anymore, no additional supplies can go in, the very first question that's going to be asked is, how accurate or how close is the predictive model? Is it valid and is it reasonable? That's going to be the first question, no matter what water user committee pops up. I would say the bigger problem that we're facing is that we're still at a major deficit with even long-term groundwater levels to know what goes on seasonally. We're missing a lot of information we need for the models. The models that Lena is mentioning with the Machindo or the Hemi, those are all multi-county scale models, not useful for a site-specific review, useful for getting started maybe, and then to do an inset model inside of it, but we're still back to the exact same place we are right now. We need more of that local data. We need something that fits the local site-specific review, not a multi-county model to do that. I mean, that's the problem that we have been facing, will continue to face. And those are the issues that we're going to have to solve long term. In large part, it's due because of the fact that we have a predictive model-based regulatory system. And that's going to rear its head again when water user committees come up and we start talking about, hey, you've got to give up this, or we've got to adjust this, or we've got to make some changes here. Those questions are going to be the very first questions that are asked before any serious discussion happens about making changes.
Great, thanks for the feedback, Todd. I appreciate that. I guess I would suggest we move on to the next topic unless anybody has any other comments on that. All right, this next one, we just wanted to have a spot here. I think when we were at the executive committee, we talked about what's the council's role. Not necessarily do we have specific feedback to this district's proposal, but what's the council's role? You want to maybe bring that up?
Well, I think that this is an important topic, and it definitely hits into kind of our wheelhouse of how this whole system works. And so I think that we should talk about, what's being proposed. Not that we're looking for feedback from them, not we're necessarily looking to give them feedback. Just they're surfacing a number of ideas, some of which I think are very good, some of which could be good if they were implemented in a certain way. And I think we should have some discussion. Again, I think it's different than, having Todd and company sitting there and it's back and forth. I think it's us as a group discussing the topic or topics that are raised.
Does anybody have any thoughts on that, or?
I guess I came away from the executive group meeting with a little bit different understanding of what the expectation was. Because what I thought I understood was that the group wanted to be able to ask questions and provide additional feedback now that they've had a little bit of time to think about that. I tentatively said yes, knowing that Todd was out of town and may not be able to or be ready to provide that. He confirmed to me that he's not, but I wanted to make sure that folks who do have feedback or questions have an avenue to do that, which is a separate thing than, than what you're talking about, Dave, in terms of figuring out if or what role the council has in the water district's discussion, because in my mind, given how early that proposal is in process, I'm not sure we have a clear role, other than if folks have questions or feedback, to help that team with, their thinking through, okay, we've got this concept, now we've got to get into the, nitty gritty details and, and the questions and feedback help us to do that.
I guess I would push back on that more in the sense that right now there is nothing that's proposed as far as that would create whole new structures of legislation or anything like that. There are ideas that are being put forward that could be implemented right now without any legislation. There are ideas that definitely fall into the kinds of things that we talk about. So how this process should work, how do we interface with people, how do we get information together, how do we better facilitate our site-specific reviews. I mean, there's lots of things that this program and we as a council have interfaced with. So I would suggest that we have that discussion on that basis. Doesn't mean it needs to be done right now, but we can, think about the best way of handling that. But I think that we want to talk about it. These are things that we as a group of stakeholders have opinions on, we've got concerns about, and we probably have suggestions as to what might be a good way of doing that. I think it would be helpful that, the group that's working on something, they might find our discussion useful to them. And they may want to work with us saying that these are things that we could do together. It doesn't need legislation, but just a way that people can organize themselves that are going to help facilitate the department getting information to the department and from the department to groups that are going to make it useful to help make decisions, to help whatever needs to be done. So I would feel very uncomfortable if we just sat back and said, well, this is a group that's working on all these important ideas. Let's just see what they come up with. Or let's look for an opportunity to give them, some ideas. I think it really falls into our wheelhouse of something we really should talk about.
It's a big water policy.
It's a huge one.
Yeah, I'd say, listen to this procedurally, in my opinion, it's, if it was relevant enough to listen to the topic, it's relevant enough to allow discussion of the topic. It's good. I mean, if you ever give time to make you all listen to something, that we say you can't talk about it here. And I should have, I should have avoided most of the fun data channel up and use your time that way. So totally different, not substantive, but it was generated discussion. But if we hold it.
I would still urge people to respond, one-on-one to their requests. But I thought it was worth putting on the agenda just to have this discussion. And I'm sorry, Laura, we were kind of off base as far as what the intention was for today. I didn't want to put Todd or anybody on the spot trying to do a question and answer. It's really do want to set this up as a future agenda item and give ourselves time to get into the meetings. I see more shrinks than.
I think it makes sense to do that.
The ones that furtherance that I heard in the last topic that if we were to do to think about what's next for water user communities. And water district thing has gone, to me like that, saying water user solution to between all the company. So we say we want to talk about what it's in that same space, right?
Kelly's got one.
Perfect. Kelly?
Hi, you guys. Just so you know, I know people have said it before, but when you're online, it is super hard to hear you guys, especially when you don't talk very loud. So the camera actually only picks up like every third or fourth word that you say. So I think what I'm hearing you say was that there was looking for opportunities to learn from each other, to gather input and thoughts. And hopefully that was clear the last time when Todd did the presentation, but you guys had a lot of really good suggestions and some perspectives for our group to consider when putting together the frequently asked questions and kind of finalizing kind of, you know, what does this look like instead of just having this concept out there. And so I would encourage you, whether you want to get together in small groups or individually, but we want your feedback. We want the information, the questions that you're asking, because that really helps us to put this under a microscope to see what it looks like. So I would say you could either email myself directly or Todd directly, or if you're uncomfortable with that, I'm sure you could email the tri-chairs, and Laura and those guys would be probably happy to forward that information to us if you prefer to do it anonymously. Whatever that looks like for you guys, we're open to feedback, into questions, into suggestions.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think our intent is not necessarily put up any roadblocks, and we do want to communicate with your group. I mean, you're going to do what you're going to do. But I think Dave's point is well made, that it's solicited a lot of thought, and this is the group that is here to talk about those things. So I guess we'll find a spot to put it on the agenda when it's appropriate, and give ourselves some time to get into the weeds.
And I think Brian's done a good job. It really melts a number of issues here that would be facilitated by our discussion. I think would help us figure out what's our forward path.
And I am really interested to hear more about Minneapolis and Minnesota and their solutions out there. So I don't know if, you know, we can work together on when that would be appropriate to bring them in, and if that is at the same time we have this type of discussion or a different time. But I think there are a couple of things that are of interest.
Yeah, and I agree. I think these are related topics. And if we continue to talk about water user committees, and there's another track that's being discussed outside of these conversations that involves water users in a local decision-making way, I think that will be confusing to our external partners. I think it's confusing to this group. And so I think they need to be, this is an appropriate forum for us to have these conversations.
Are there any other hands raised online? Are there any other comments on the room and stuff?
I don't think.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that, we'll start to wrap up. We've got a meeting coming up here June 9th. Try to get people here for to get a forum, but I don't think it's the August 11th meeting that we're going to try to start to make sure that we get people here so we can ask things if they can be.
I also have been getting some messages from one of our members of our board who may be able to try to find us a location to do like a morning field visit tour of some kind for the August meeting. So more to come on that. We'll
okay.
As he's working on that, I'll keep you guys in the loop.
Excellent. All right, with that, I guess I would open it up for more public comment. The last few minutes, this would be on anything. So I don't know if there's anybody online that has public comment.
Hands raised.
Okay. Anybody else? With that,
I guess I'll just say, let's keep in mind people in the northern tier with the Sheboygan Dam, high levels, and there's a lot of hot water all over. So keep those people in mind and
thank you.
Hope everybody's safe. Yeah.
Yeah, reports that I'm getting from the folks up in that area are saying that they've kind of got a ready, set, go plan for evacuation. They're at the set level of that plan. So folks are being asked to get ready to evacuate if needed. But I also saw that they hauled in a huge crane to start taking some of the planks out of the dam to try to relieve some of the water pressure. So yeah, fingers definitely crossed.
All right. Well, safe travels, everybody, and we'll see you in June.
Thanks, everyone.
Just a note, if you have not, for those in person here, if you have not signed in, there's a sign up sheet over here. We really appreciate if you fill that out for attendance purposes and making sure our distribution list is updated.
It's